One of nature's greatest ecosystem engineers, wolves are a part of what makes Canada wild. They can shape entire landscapes by keeping grazing populations healthy and in balance. Intelligent and social, wolves are essential threads in the food web. Yet every year, the BC provincial government guns them down by the hundreds. After a decade of provincial claims that British Columbia's wolf cull is humane and necessary for caribou recovery, newly released documents tell a different story. The relationship between wolves and caribou is one that has existed for millennia and has been at the center of the debate in British Columbia's caribou recovery strategy. Ongoing logging, mining, oil and gas developments, and road building are all driving caribou to the brink. Woodland caribou rely on old-growth lichens for their food and depend on intact ancient forests for their shelter and protection. Today, the vast herds of caribou have disappeared, with more and more herds going locally extinct. Caribou were added to the Canadian Federal Species at Risk Act in 2003, and the provinces of British Columbia and Alberta were tasked with making plans for caribou recovery. Government documents identify habitat loss as the cause of caribou decline. But ironically, since being listed as a species at risk, habitat loss has increased by over 250%. Over 8,000 square kilometers of critical caribou habitat in BC has been logged since then, and 7 caribou herds have been added to the extinction list. Clearcuts and logging roads make it easier for wolves to hunt and travel, and while caribou are not their preferred prey, they will eat caribou if available.
It's my impression and understanding, that caribou habitat issues are the problem. Exploitation of old growth forests. Wolves are just one factor in the cause of death of caribou. Once you start killing wolves, what else are you doing to get to the point where you don't need to kill wolves any longer? It seems to me the most logical concern should be habitat. If they're not coming back, if they're not maintaining, there's something going on with the habitat. Shooting wolves for 10 years in a row, it just doesn't seem to me that you're attacking the problem. The wolf has become a convenient target, maybe a political target, to show that we are doing something to save the caribou. But it's my impression that the problem's much bigger than wolves.
To protect caribou, it is not necessary to kill wolves. Research has shown that piling debris to block old disused roads reduces wolf access to caribou habitat.
You can have immediate responses of restoration techniques, and our study showed that immediate responses if we do things to remove the ability of animals to travel on these linear disturbances, hinging trees into roads and seismic lines, or putting soil mounding things on it, just making it tougher for an animal to move across these features. We ended up having an 85% reduction in the encounter rates between wolves and caribou. It came out as very effective, and the results were immediate.
Instead of protecting and restoring habitat, the BC government opted to launch an aerial wolf cull in 2015 as a supposedly short-term measure until caribou habitat had recovered.
If there is destruction of the land and the waters and the resources, so the natural and spiritual world, there's destruction to our relationship with the wolves.
10 years in, the wolf cull continues, yet caribou habitat has not recovered. In fact, they have even less old-growth forests than before.
Over millions of years they coexisted, wolves and caribou. Then you start logging, you start clear cutting areas. They have to really look at where the caribou, where their habitat is and the most important parts of their habitat, which is their wintering grazing grounds. Those areas should never be logged.
In the last decade, $3.65 billion tax dollars have been spent subsidizing the logging industry. Over 2,500 wolves have been killed, and over $11 million have been spent killing them. Everyone, including provincial and federal governments, agree that habitat loss is the root cause of the caribou crisis. So why kill wolves? One Freedom of Information request we reviewed contained 21 caribou postmortem investigations. Only 3 reports identified or suspected wolf attacks to be the cause of death. Despite all of this, the government continues to kill wolves and approve and subsidize industrial resource extraction projects in critical caribou habitat. The British Columbia government's Wildlife Act includes many regulations intended to protect animals from undue suffering and ensure that hunters do not have an unfair advantage over their prey. Yet after reviewing more than 1,600 pages of internal government records obtained through Freedom of Information requests, Pacific Wild has discovered that the BC Wolf Cull program kills wolves with impunity using barbaric and cruel methods. Each winter in BC, when a blanket of deep snow covers the landscape, the helicopters take off and begin following wolf tracks.
So it's direct to Cull Lake where we'd left the large 10 pack on the 14th. Located 7 grey wolves in the track. Euthanized 5 wolves and collared 1. It appeared that 4 wolves had split off this pack a mile before we found them. Hopefully the collared wolf reunites with all of them.
When tracks in the snow aren't enough, government contractors take advantage of ranchers' livestock carcass piles to track and kill wolves. These open piles of dead livestock exploit wolves' natural instincts and violate BC's Wildlife Act, which prohibits leaving attractants that could draw in dangerous wildlife. Beyond taking advantage of wolves, effectively being baited by ranchers, contractors also work with local trappers, deploying remote sensing technology to locate wolves. Freedom of Information documents show game cameras are used to locate wolves for the cull. Some wildlife cameras can transmit images directly to smartphones, providing real-time intelligence for the kill. This kind of tech-assisted hunting is banned for the public under BC's hunting regulations. But for government contractors, the rules don't seem to apply. The winter offers another tactical advantage for marksmen. Running in deep snow slows wolves down. Contractors chase wolves with helicopters through the deep snow, scaring and wearing down the animals until they can no longer flee. It is against the Wildlife Act to haze or harass wildlife with helicopters, but contractors in the cull are exempt from this regulation.
We managed to haze one of the pack down to the meadows along the creek. We got 3 nets on it at 2 different locations, but the lack of snow allowed the wolf back out and escaped both times.
My experience with working with helicopters for many years, knowing how helicopters are, how stressful they can be to animals and how unstable they can be in flight, and knowing what I know about wild animals, and also my experience with the SPCA, knowing what causes distress and what distress really is. I mean, chasing an animal down to exhaustion is obviously distress. Provoking an animal, harassing an animal is distress.
Once the helicopter is close enough, and the wolf has been run to exhaustion, the contractors will shoot a net gun to entangle and capture it. Contractor guidelines recommend tightening snares around the wolves' mouths, binding their jaws with tape, hobbling their legs, and blindfolding them before putting radio collars around their necks. These radio collars are not for research. They are used to track and kill other wolves. A collared wolf is known as a Judas wolf, released to return home unaware it carries the signal that will lead hunters directly to its pack. One by one, members of its family are killed. The wolf watches, survives, and is often used to kill again. Even pups have been collared, born into betrayal, and used to lead others to their deaths.
So they've turned them into this fearful storybook character, the big bad wolf. And there's no transparency in what they're doing. If it were truly humane, why isn't there a totally independent, non-governmental field biologist as an observer on these wolf calls? Has anybody even taken a picture of what's going on, where it's going on, how it's going on? I mean, it's so secretive what they're doing and how they're doing it.
The BC government calls the wolf call humane, claiming wolves are euthanized with a single shot.
When you're in the field chasing a wolf in a helicopter, you know that animal's terrified. You try and get that chase or that capture done in 10 minutes or less. You don't chase them and chase them and chase them till you get them into some position, because you can get into myopathy, you can get into health conditions running these animals, especially when they're struggling in deep snow. So I don't buy that killing a wolf is done humanely. They dodge, they weave. With all these variables in there, somehow you put a projectile into that animal.
Freedom of Information documents reveal their deception. In one account, contractors describe shooting 17 wolves in a month. Only one died from a single shot to the head. 10 were hit with more than one bullet.
If they've killed, let's say, 2,300 wolves, and we see images of 17 killed with one shot, if they were actually killing a majority of those with one shot, they would have released far more images.
But perhaps that isn't a surprise. Rather than using traditional hunting rifles designed to make a clean kill shot, permit applications suggest contractors use a .308 semi-automatic rifle with a 30-round magazine. These weapons are not intended to ensure a quick and humane death, but instead maximize the chances of hitting a target in a chaotic, high-speed aerial operation. These guns are weapons of war. They are equipped with magazines 6 times larger than the legal size and prohibited by the police. But yet again, the government has granted itself an exemption, putting aside public safety to put wolves at risk.
If you're killing wolves for 10 years in a row to save caribou, to me there's really a lot lacking in what else agencies are doing to recover the caribou. Because just shooting wolves, I think doing this for 10 years, saying there's still a problem, isn't solving the problem.
I would say that this is the need to understand that what we do to the natural world, all of it, the natural world, we do to ourselves, is really important. And certainly in this context, I think, what we do to the wolves, we do to ourselves.
In 2024 alone, at least 34 entire wolf families were killed in this way. Erased forever from the landscape where they have coexisted with caribou for millennia.